Hey, what's up, everyone? Um, Happy to be on the podcast with y'all. How's everybody feeling?
It's raining out here, bro. So you already know I got
Oh
that
shit.
hour-long train ride,
Oh,
and
Yeah.
then it started pouring. And so, yeah, Lena, she told me, she was like, "Make sure you don't forget the umbrella today." I almost did, but she came and
Oh
got me.
yeah. So you got it. So you got it.
Yeah. She was like, "It's gonna be
Okay.
raining all day." And
Yeah.
hmm.
there was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been
That's so
sunny.
yeah, that's interesting.
It's been sunny and hot as hell here. So I don't envy the rain, but I wish it was a little bit cooler. But yeah, man, it's been good, man. All weekend was good. I just been relaxing, just getting ready for the week. I got a pretty aggressive week in terms of some milestones I'm trying to hit. So, um, yeah,
Mm.
I'm super excited. But I've been looking forward to this podcast because the topics that I've been diving into have been showing some interesting
Yeah.
insight. So won't jump ahead, but yeah, I've been
Yeah.
looking forward to this recording.
For sure. For sure. No, to everybody listen, I can't wait for Jace to talk to more of those things too, because that it's very important. But start off a little bit more lighthearted though. Look, so Zuck versus Musk. There's been a conversation for the last month or two. People not really understanding like who's serious, who's not serious. Both sides doing their own communications in different ways. Like, you have Zuck on his new platform, Threads. But then you also have, and sorry guys, you guys hear like a ambulance in the background, but then you have, Musk, who just acquired Twitter, and he's probably the most followed person on Twitter at the current point. And it seems like it's not happening. But both of them seem to be pointing the finger at why it's not happening. Even going as far as to putting some text messages from each other. But essentially Zuck doesn't think Elon is serious and that they should move on. Elon saying, "Hey, look, I've done some practices, but I'm a busy guy, etc." What do y'all think? What's going on there? And should we actually care?
How,
To be honest,
how did
I couldn't care less, but
how did this even
it's
come
entertaining.
about though? Because at one point in time they were discussing like holding a fight at the Coliseum in Rome.
Coliseum,
And I was
brother.
like, "Whoa, that was crazy." I didn't even know like they still have fights there. I'm like, I thought that was shut down like 1,000 years ago. But
I, I
apparently
think I,
they
That's some
I
Elon
think
go
shit.
ahead,
this.
bro.
No, I think this started boiling over after Mark's interview with Lex Friedman, because
I see.
that was around the time
I see.
Mark had mentioned that he was doing jujitsu and all that. And I think
Mm.
then you started seeing Lex Friedman do karate and all that with Elon, and then it started to turn into, you got these billionaires who are all doing this cool martial arts.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of how it spun.
I think real talk. I
Wow.
I think Elon is. I don't know if he's afraid, but he's obviously not. And one, I don't think he's
He's
in
lame.
physical shape. So
He's
I
lame.
think that's one. I think that's one thing. Two, I don't think
Yeah.
he is like. I don't think he's trained. And I don't think he's trained enough. Like when I seen Zuck videos, and I'm not like a huge
Yeah.
martial arts guy, but I do like start. I
Yeah.
follow it like here and there. When I see Zuck training like with Lex, who is has been training for a long time as well, and training like Zuck actually training with people who really do this,
Hold
I'm
on,
like Elon.
he was training with
Elon.
GSP.
I'm like Elon don't want this, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He don't want
Elon
this. I'm
doesn't.
like
I'm not gonna lie.
he not
Yeah.
ready. But at the same time, though, I feel like Elon is that person that like the fact that Zuck has gone public and said that like, oh, Elon's not serious. I feel like that's just enough for Elon to like be like, all right, bet to get serious. I'm about to get serious and like we really gonna do this thing. Because I
Yeah,
can't imagine like Elon taking public disrespect like well. And
Yeah.
basically that's what Zuck did. Like he
Yeah.
basically was like, hey, he's not serious. Like he knows what this is gonna be. Like I'm not even
Yeah.
worried about this. Let's
Yeah.
move on. Let's move on. He
I'm gonna be
decided to
honest.
move on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it a stab with you. I think Elon would figure out a way to take the L pretty well. I think his whole thing would
Mm.
be, I have more money.
Sure. 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 I feel like Elon. I do think that. Okay, here's what I think. I think
I
Elon
have
is
multiple
not prepared.
companies. That's
They just gonna fall back on
So
that. It's gonna fall back.
he's
Who
busy.
got
He's
the most
busy.
bread though? Who got the most bread though? But that's funny. That's funny. Well, here's my thing. I agree with Dre. Elon is not prepared. I think Elon said that shit off the cuff. That shit got a little bit more serious than he thought. Elon also is he's not like the smallest guy either. He's over 6 feet. Mark is a little bit smaller. Mark is built though. Elon, like based on what I've seen, Elon he's not built like that. So there's a side differences, and also Mark, he really does it. So when Mark says that, hey, you're not serious. Like, yeah, he wants to come to the backyard and shit, but he ain't really, you know, uh, I really look at it that like Mark Wright, because from my perspective, I get why Elon would delay. Elon's out of shape. He's running a ridiculous amount of companies, very large organizations, and he also has multiple kids. Any regular human being may find that difficult. And also, by the way, he doesn't have one wife like how Mark does. So um, any one person might find that difficult to squeeze in, some training with someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who is a lot more you know, uh stable with his umbrella there. But
Elon
even
is
though almost
giving
I bet
Conor
you really
McGregor
can.
vibes.
Yeah.
I
Oh, right, right. I see. Yeah.
and Mark is giving Floyd Mayweather vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn,
And
that
people
actually
and
hurts.
yeah.
I'm such a huge fan of Connor, hey, he is where he is. He's done what he's done. It's his doing. It is what it is. But I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. Maybe it's because he's entertaining. I think that's what it is.
He is very entertaining.
I think we're just naturally drawn towards people who are just incredibly entertaining, who can just become a character, who could take on this character persona of money, of strength, of power, like a modern day warrior in a sense. I think that's just attractive
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
today's society. So he definitely captivated the audience, but yeah, much less relevant than a Floyd Mayweather for sure.
100%. However, if they do it, I will clearly tune in, just off the entertainment value I'll get out of it. It'll be a moment, but I don't expect it to pan out. And like Zuckerberg
Would you
said,
pay?
like I
Would
hope,
y'all pay to watch it?
um,
Like if it was like a pay per view, maybe not as
I would
much. Maybe it's
pay.
like 20
Yeah, I would.
$20 or
I
something.
would.
Maybe like
I would
20
pay.
bucks.
I would pay because I think I would pay. Yeah, I would pay. Based on the way that like Elon was framing it, it would be free on X and etc. But if it wasn't, I would pay. But that really is more so because I would like to be a part of the live event that it would be.
Hmm.
It'd be
Hmm.
people from all people from every side of like these people are very like they're touching everybody's lives. There's nobody that
I,
that doesn't have a Facebook account. There's nobody that that doesn't like is not like maybe benefiting from like something Elon made like PayPal, etc. So, I think I would pay.
I think it would be probably one of the most streamed events if it actually happened and it actually was recorded. Like, if they
Yeah.
actually live stream it, I
Yeah.
think it would be huge because I think people would just, again, entertainment purposes, people would just want to see you got two. When is the last time we've seen
Yeah.
two really rich billionaires fight each other? We've never seen it.
I never.
It's
For
like
fun.
it's like a unicorn. It's like a unicorn,
Yeah.
exactly, for fun, and they don't
Yeah.
even need the money. It don't
Yeah.
matter what you pay them. It's not. It won't even matter.
Yeah.
You could pay
It means
them
nothing.
everything. It literally
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So we never seen that before. So I
Yeah.
definitely think it would draw a crowd. That's for sure.
Yeah, it will draw a crowd, for sure. But yeah, yo, so on another note though, Dre, you brought up something that I had saw on Twitter, but yeah, I was like feel free to dive into it because I think you've looked pretty deep into some what's going on there.
Are you talking about the Fearless Fund or
The
uh
Fearless Fund.
the self
Sorry
drive?
about
Okay,
that.
so
Fearless
yeah,
Fund.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this came across my radar. Actually, I heard about the Fearless Fund like a while ago, like when they announced, like like every VC fund, they do their little announcement on TechCrunch or the information, the $50 million round, $100 million round, we see it every single day. So I heard about them a while ago, but they kind of fell off my radar. But up recently, they came back up because they are currently being sued for violating the Civil Rights Act. And at first, I kind of just like kept scrolling, like I didn't pay much attention to it. Um, but then I was like, you know what, let me dig a little bit deeper and see like where is the merit of this lawsuit. But what really caught my eye was when I found out who was behind it. So let me give a little bit of context. So the Fearless Fund is a venture capital fund started by two Black women. It's $100 million fund. This fund has been backed by some pretty big corporate backers like Costco, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. I think they're a part of it as well. JP Morgan Chase as well. So some really big corporate backers have come together and deployed $100 million into this VC fund that is specifically formed to invest in Black, Asian, Hispanic, and Native American women businesses. So they literally have a very clear thesis of exactly what they're looking for. So they're looking for minority women of color to back and invest in. Two investments that they did relatively recently was Slutty Vegan, which Brylan, I'm sure you're very familiar with as you lived in Atlanta. It's an incredibly
I
popular
am.
restaurant. I don't even know if you would call it a restaurant. That's probably like undermining it, because I think at this point they do so much more than just that. But they're
Yeah.
really big, and they're also investors in the Lip Bar, which is a Detroit-based makeup company. So shout out to the Lip Bar. So they've done quite a
Shout
few
out.
deals. They've done over 40 investments. The fund was started in 2019. Um, and so the American Alliance for Equal Rights is a nonprofit, and they are basically the nonprofit that is suing the Fearless Fund. And so the reason why they're suing them is because the Fearless Fund has a grant called the Strivers Grant Contest. And this grant awards Black women, it's specifically for Black women, $20,000. I believe, I'm pretty sure it's non-dilutive capital because it is a grant program. So it's non-dilutive capital for Black women to run their businesses. So $20,000. And the American Alliance for Equal Rights, this nonprofit, is saying that this particular program violates a section of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. So for those who don't know, actually, there's two Civil Rights Acts. There's one that was passed in the 1960s, which Dr. King and a lot of civil rights people were heavily involved in. But there was another Civil Rights Act that was actually passed in the 1860s. And so this particular nonprofit is saying that they're violating some racial discrimination laws from that civil rights bill. And it claimed that there are members of the actual fund that are being excluded because, again, this particular program is only geared towards Black women, when the fund itself does not just only invest in Black women, they also invest in Asian women, Hispanic women, as well as Native American women. But this particular grant program is only towards Black women. So I'm like, okay, this is pretty, at surface level, this may seem like not a big deal. But I took a step further and I'm like, okay, who's actually funding this? And so there's this guy named Edward Bloom he basically calls himself an American matchmaker, who effectively uses his skills to remove what he considers to be race conscious policies from American life. And this is a quote that he actually said from himself. He said, "I seek out individuals or jurisdictions, corporations who have been discriminated against in various endeavors because of their race and ethnicity. Over the years, my outreach my bad, I covered that up, but essentially dismantle many different organizations for these practices." And basically, what he does is he goes and he finds a case that is currently open, or he'll go out and find a business or institution that he believes is violating traditional conservative values. And then he'll go out and he'll find lawyers who will take on that case. And since the 1990s, dude, this is pretty astounding right here. This is a crazy statistic. My man is goaded in terms of getting cases to the Supreme Court, which is incredibly difficult, by the way. Since the 1990s, he has filed over 12 dozen cases, not 12 dozen, over 12 cases attempting to remove the concept of race from American laws. 8 of those out of those 12 cases have gone on to the Supreme Court. Well, which ones have actually passed? So in 2013, the Supreme Court passed a Voters' Right Act. So they basically rewrote some of the Voters' Right Act of 1965. They basically allow mostly of the South. These are southern states. So where I live, Texas, Alabama, Florida, like Mississippi, like Louisiana, like some of these southern states, essentially, the Supreme Court passed this law that basically allowed these states to change their voting laws without having to get federal approval. So part of the stipulation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, in order to keep things stable and equal across the board, was that, hey, if you're going to make these big voting rights or voting law changes, you need to have federal approval so that we can make sure that everything is staying good. The Supreme Court reversed that. So that changed things. So what did Texas do? So Texas, for example, instituted a ID check. So now if you go out and vote in Texas, you need to have an ID. So what did that do? That obviously stopped a bunch of minorities. And so the reason why I'm telling this particular story is because it has context into exactly who we're dealing with, who is helping to litigate and finance cases that are starting to rewrite a bunch of laws that have been on the books for well over 100 years. Again, I went back to the Civil Rights Act of 1866. So this is like we're talking about something that's been around for a long time. And then the last thing I'll say here before I get your take on it, there was this quote that he gave. I don't have it right in front of me, but essentially he did an interview with I think it was the New York Times, if I'm not mistaken, and it was after the affirmative action. So he was also I think I mentioned this. He was a part of the lawyer that helped reverse affirmative action from universities. So not only was he a part of the Voting Rights Act, but he also got the affirmative action rules dismantled. So this man is systematically going through the system and rewriting these laws. But one thing that I thought was most important to give color into who we're dealing with here is he was giving this interview with the New York Times. And a very clear question came about, which is, do you believe the systematic racism in America exists? And his answer was no. He does not believe it. He rejects that notion that systematic racism in America exists. He doesn't believe it. And so that obviously goes to show like how he decides to move about and what cases he goes after and what have you. And so what he's trying to do is obviously remove race conscious, remove the conversation of race without changing the underlying systems that cause these programs to need to be in place in the first place. And so this black fund that he's going after is just one, but there are going to be other funds that he'll probably go after. They're also looking at diversity and inclusion programs at corporate companies. So we all on here have friends that were part of a program called Code 2040. Well, that's a conversation that's going to be coming up really soon on whether or not that program violates Civil Rights Act, because I don't think there's any white graduates of Code 2040. Maybe there are, but that program is obviously geared towards black and minority. So you guys get the point. But I thought this what seemed to be like this simple lawsuit that may not have much merit, doesn't seem like it has much merit. But when you go deeper, it actually seems like it actually might. And I think we all morally agree to we need these programs. Women should get this funding. I think we're all on the same page there. But legally, I think he does have some grounds and some base in what he's doing. And furthermore, he has an incredible track record. So I don't think he would be taking this far if he actually didn't believe it himself. So yeah, I want to get your thoughts on that because I thought it was pretty interesting when I went a couple layers deep.
I got a question. Did any of y'all anticipate this coming like this fast after affirmative action? Like that was literally just like a month or so ago.
I didn't anticipate the target. However, the original affirmative action case that he was involved in made me skeptical of his true intents, based on what I knew about his stated goals. So I am not surprised at the timing of maybe how fast he's moving, given the fact that there are a lot of because of what Dre said earlier about the Supreme Court and states being able to change things faster. It doesn't surprise me that people are taking the opportunities while they can right now to reverse a lot of things that they don't believe in. For example, does not believe in systemic racism, which would explain a lot of his actions. But I did not expect. What I am surprised about is the targets that he's chosen. And now I'm wondering. I'm left to wonder many questions. But before I go into too much into that, Brylan, I like Yeah, I saw I'm not surprised by him, because I figured that, like, he had some underlying motives,
Mm.
and had some separation from, what, many people believe is are problems in America, versus, like, what he's legally able to do and essentially do within the law. Um, uh, but yeah, but I don't wanna go too
One,
far on
one
my
second.
own,
I gotta
yeah.
let me quote this real quick because I found the quote. Now I just want to add this context because I thought this was very, very insightful. Right. Uh, uh, so the interviewer asked him, "I'm wondering if you believe in systematic racism embedded in the institutions of American life. Because if you look at the statistics in our country, a typical white family holds 10 times the wealth that a typical black family does. There are currently only 8 black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, 20 Latino CEOs. Black people live sicker lives and they die younger than white people. I could go on." And his reply, quote, "No, I don't believe in it. What your question implies is that in American DNA, there is racism. It was founded upon racism. It is part of this country. It is part of this country. And I reject that." So that's who we're dealing with. That, that's his clear
Okay.
beliefs. And he's
That
putting his
that that that
capital behind his beliefs.
yeah. Yeah, what he's doing is making excuses for his beliefs and not basing them on you can't, make the claim that, that America wasn't founded upon something that, existed before the foundation of the country, and further was reinforced by laws, by the country, etc. He is, playing a very strategic game of almost, self-righteousness and also, plausible deniability about his true intentions. Because, laws are meant to protect people, especially the most vulnerable people. And so the reason why I was originally skeptical of this person is because of the of him. In the case that I saw with affirmative action, Asians and Black people are both minorities in America. They are both, laws that are been made, to protect them, us, but then also other minorities like women, etc., um, because of all the things that are going on. So to me, someone that truly cares about these issues that he's talking about, would we focus on who is likely doing, the most damage to the vulnerable, which would just by sheer numbers would have to be whoever in the majority. And so, um, I think his beliefs are I don't even know if he believes what he says because they don't sound factual. But I could go on for a little bit for a minute on that.
Hmm.
It doesn't sound like his beliefs are based on facts. They sound like they're idealistic beliefs that the founding fathers didn't have, bad intent, etc., and that the systems don't block people in certain ways. However, he seems to, either intentionally or maliciously, um, uh, or unintentionally. I don't believe it's unintentional, but yeah, but he may, let's say it was unintentional. He's not informed on the active ways that in which case, multiple minorities and vulnerable populations were, after they were freed, continually, bullied, continually used for free labor, continually lied to. For example, it was once illegal for Black slaves to be able to read. So even if you free imagine freeing a generation of Black slaves that it was just illegal to read. Those are vulnerable populations. You can't sit here and say that none of those things affect, um, Black populations today, and there's not long-lasting effects today unless you don't believe in cause and effect. So I think that, he's ingenuous, and I think that he is a dangerous individual. I think that I feel sad for who he's targeting. He's targeting groups and turning other groups against other minority groups against each other to gain support for his ultimate, goals. We're dealing with a dangerous individual. I do believe, though, that his intention will be more clear as he tries to go further. I do not believe that, he will be able to, fully undo a lot of
Let me let me
things. Yeah.
let me ask a more broader question. Brylan, I'm curious what your take is on this. Do you think there is perhaps validity in his original argument, which is that race should not be a consideration in American policy? Like, irrespective of the history or whatever the case may be, is like his general belief is that the American society doesn't want to necessarily always have race be considered for a job. Like, you don't want to not have to get a job. You don't not want a job because you're black. You also don't want to necessarily be given a job because you're black, right? Like, you want a job because you're just qualified and like everybody else is applying and like you can work at it like everybody else. So I'm curious, like, what do you think about like the argument of race should be removed from American conscious, like, I guess the concept of it being removed from institutions in terms of applications and things like that. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think the argument is fair?
No, I think that argument is pretty immature. Just because I think context matters. Like context is very similar to gravity. You can't ignore it. Like it's there. You have to work with it. And I think in the context of just policies, um, and just making decisions about a group of people, it's very hard to discredit history. And I think Rodney spoke to it really well when he talked about cause and effect. Like it's a chain reaction that has been started, and we're forced to respond based off of what is presented. And so I don't agree with that piece of it, but something I was curious about, just to hear if y'all saw anything, was if you remember when affirmative action happened, there was this clear difference in how, like, black folks, rather if they were founders or investors in the space, kind of responded versus like
Mhm.
your Andrew Chins of the world and like, other folks like that. Um, yeah. Did y'all see anything similar when it came to like Fearless Fund? Like, I'm just kind of curious what y'all were seeing in like the social sphere.
I didn't see any. I didn't really see a lot of public support from traditional funds commenting on this particular case. I mean, obviously, I think the community broadly is upset. Right. And when I say community, like
Hmm.
that's obviously our community, right? But yeah, I didn't see anyone publicly come out. I know like the NCAA has like been involved in helping out. But again, if you're talking about like from like the Andrew Chans of the world or from some of these
Yeah,
bigger
yeah, that's what I'm
VCs,
talking about.
yeah, no, of course not. They don't give a fuck about this. Like, this is $100 million. First of all, this is $100 million fund. Like, they don't really care. Secondly, it's going towards black women or women of color. They don't really care about that, obviously, because that is reflected in their numbers. So no, I didn't see any of that energy, not at all.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, now, like from Jay said, not from the most larger ones. And I did, like Dre's also mentioned, I have seen a response in our community, especially if you separate it additionally with Black tech communities and also Latinx, etc. I saw that and I've heard that and I felt bad for the individuals that are being targeted. I also see where the dangers of this could ultimately lead to, and there is a really healthy concern. I don't think that. Here's what I unfortunately do believe. Here's my unfortunate belief. I do believe that there's a legality to it that that potentially could make things an unfavorable outcome. At the same time, I'm also of the wider perspective or the long-term perspective of America in the sense of, um, you know, when somebody, when somebody, when you cut your arm, um, on accident, and you didn't mean to, but you cut it on accident, you might need to do a bunch of things, but the first thing you need to do is stop the bleeding. So you got to do a
Mm.
Band-Aid. The Band-Aid are, for example, the laws that people are saying right now are favoring, for example, certain minorities, etc. that's the mandate. Of course, ultimately, our end goal as a shared, uh, country would be to, we don't have to consider these things at all. At the same time, um, these are band-aids. And if we had the other things already done, we would be able to focus on healing in more of a longer term way. In which case, we can start to trust that it's not going to be about your race, your gender, or your sexuality or whatever. But that's not today, and so therefore, the band-aid is still required. Just because you don't have antibiotics right now doesn't mean that you can't put a band-aid on today. So I think that he is my personal belief is that he's a malicious individual, and he's attacking vulnerable communities. I also believe that he's taking incentives for other vulnerable communities. For example, using other communities. I'm not speaking for all of Asian people, but I saw an anecdote from one Asian person that got a lot of traction, and he felt like that guy used them. He um, use them as a tool, and he doesn't really. And he feels like now that he sees the Fearless One situation, that it looks more like, oh, we were just a tool, and you bringing down other minorities, as opposed to you actually caring about getting rid of uh, uh, racial problems or whatever. And to Dre's point, also to what Jay also said, he doesn't even believe in it. So I think with that anecdote from that one Asian person, again, he doesn't speak for the whole Asian community. But I saw a lot of Asian people also sentiment of that. The larger ones, no, I haven't seen that, but I have seen some, and I felt like that was empathetic, and I respected those takes. And also I understand why might why minorities in our positions that we are in can be a little bit more um, susceptible to not realizing ulterior motives that are meant
Hmm.
to break down, things that are meant to protect all of us.
Hmm.
But um,
I
yeah, that's
think
my
I think
take on that.
one thing I'll add, then we can move on. Two things actually. I think there's two things that are really to speak to me about the situation. So one is that he is not doing this alone, right? Like he has
Mm,
backers and he has donors and he has people who are financing him and funding him in order to preserve traditional white American values. That's basically what it is, right? And the other thing that's concerning to me as well is that let's just say he does believe that America isn't like built on systemic racism, right? Let's just say, like, for a second, let's just pretend that he does believe that, right? I think what's concerning to me then is that you have a person who has the power and also the backing to shape policy that can exist for a very long time for a country that they don't understand the historical context of. Because to make a statement that America isn't built on racism is completely false. Like there's
It's
no way
wild.
around that. That's a crazy statement. So let's just assume it's true. If that were true, then there's a broader issue at hand where you can have somebody who truly doesn't understand the system that they are themselves impacting. But let's take the other side and let's say that it's not true. Then the broader concern for everybody is like we're kind of rolling back the clock a little bit. That's what it feels like in many areas. In many areas where we kind of progress, we kind of roll back the clock. And yeah, we should stay observant to that because I think that's important. And it's easy to like put your head down and be like, I'm not affected by that. I'm good. I'm in tech or whatever industry you're in. I'm straight. I'm this. I'm that. But we're talking about voting law policy. We're talking about educational institutional policy. Okay, like we're talking about funding policy. We're talking about real shit that affects everybody's life every single day. And so this is not a matter of class or any of that. This is about a systematic attack to preserve white conservative values in America. That's what this is. And I think that deserves a quite a bit of light because it's a problem. I think it's a problem. I really do. So Yeah, we can move
No,
on from that.
Yeah,
But
I
yes.
yes. It is. It is.
no,
I do
I
wanna say
100%
something
agree.
else too, so I do wanna say something else too. I also consider, you know, working class Americans, regardless of any race, vulnerable, as well, in the conversation, in the sense of, for example, it's not hard for me to see how, there are people who feel disenfranchised, and somebody has sold them on the belief that, that the border is the problem, or this person coming to take your job is the problem, or this person right here, who's getting a minority, like who's a part of this minority group is the problem. Is those are also people who are vulnerable, that are, because I don't believe, here's what I do believe. I do believe that there's a strategic unwinding, and the people who are ultimately doing this don't care about anybody. I think they don't even care about the own people that are buying into it that they think they do. Like they there's some. I think there are people who are also white who are in disadvantaged situations for whatever reason, and it's easy for them to buy into the narrative that it's somebody else that's the problem for my life. And so
Mm.
I think that's an easy narrative to buy into, and so they're also being taken advantage of. Ultimately, the people who have the power and who are doing these coordinated things like Dre is talking about, they don't care about anybody. They just care about maintaining primarily, yes, the race part of it, but also just their position in this whole thing, and their legacies, etc. But yeah, that's my last piece on that. Brylan, if you had anything else, but I guess there was another topic that we're gonna get to. I think I forgot what it was. What were we talking about before this? There was another like
The
this was more
self-driving
brighter.
cars. Self-driving cars.
This is more optimistic
Uh,
about the future. Yeah, it's more
hold
optimistic
up,
about the
hold up.
future.
Do you hold up. The topics we be discussing on here are wild. It's almost out of like a sci-fi book. Where
Yeah.
think about it, we're living in a world where you're seeing all these different important policies unwind, and then you have this crazy evolution in technology happening. And I feel like both of them are going under the radar.
Mhm.
You
I
know?
agree.
I
So
see.
think
Yeah, there's a lot of distractions right now, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
I
so
agree
go
with you.
ahead, Dre.
I was gonna say, I mean, I mean, look, history is a good is a good window into the future, right? Going back, right? If you go back and look at like in the 1860s, right, when that first civil rights bill was passed, and then things started after that bill was passed, things started to get rewritten. And then what happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s? We went through an industrial boom, right? That's a technology shift that happened in America. It wasn't through computers, but it was through industrial, it was through oil, it was through gas, it was through a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, I think to echo what you're saying, Brylan, it kind of feels similar to that time. To be honest, it feels very similar to that time.
Nah, 100%. So I know we were talking about Cruise and Waymo and just autonomous vehicles in general, man. And I'm sure, hopefully, for many of the listeners out there, y'all saw that California, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was California, the state of California,
Mm.
approved their license for level 5 autonomy. Like, you have to understand what the hell that means.
Yeah.
That is
So
wild.
break down
Please
level
enlighten
5 because
us.
I don't even think most people are familiar with like the fact that there are different levels of autonomy that exist.
Yeah. Hold on. So, I don't want to cap on this. So I want to make sure I'm giving it to you
Yeah.
in straight facts. And so, yeah. So there's actually 6 levels of autonomy, right? The first level is actually level 0, no automation. Like the driver is in full control of the vehicle at all times. Then you have level 1, which is driver assistance. The vehicle features a single automated system for drivers, and this can be, like cruise control. Then there's partial automation, which is level 2. The vehicle can control both steering and accelerating. So rather than just one or the other, it's like, nah, I can actually control where you go and how fast you get there. And then level 3 is conditional. The vehicle is capable of driving itself in particular conditions, which it can take control of all safety critical systems. This is very
Mm.
interesting because think about how over the last few years, a lot of cars kind of have added like road assist, like or whatever the control was, where you could push it and the car would just kind of drive, as long as it was in those same lines, right? It wouldn't switch lanes like the Tesla, but it did a little something, something.
Yeah.
And then we had level 4, which was high automation. This is where a lot of the vehicles, I would say, when it comes to Cruise and Waymo, have kind of been. The vehicle is capable of driving itself in most conditions, but it like still requires that human intervention. And then level 5, this the big boy, the one that a lot of self-driving car companies have been working on for damn near 10 to 15 years, if we're being honest. Like it's been a minute. But this is when the vehicle can fully be autonomous. There's no driver or any intervention in the car. Like it's empty. And you just hop in to an empty car and it turns itself into it. It does all that by itself.
Do they
It
run
yeah,
all night? What do they store?
yeah,
Where do they store these
24/7, bro.
cars? So what do they
Well,
store these
actually, the,
cars?
the new law though allows them to run 24/7. Were they running 24/7 before?
No, 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 no. They were running during specific times, I believe.
Yeah, so that's the big
So
difference here. Is
so
like now you have these autonomous vehicles that can run 24/7 now
run
and make
forever?
money.
That's
Because that was also part of the condition
Yeah.
before. Is like I think like Waymo was like giving away rides. They couldn't charge. I think Cruise was
Yeah.
charging for night rides or something like that. There was like stipulations on how to charge, which I don't even understand
Yeah.
why, but it was. So now those restrictions are lifted now. So now you can it's all night and you can charge. So that changes the game completely, in my opinion.
That does change it. Like, I can't even imagine that. I mean, I get concerned about that in some ways. I'm all for the future of this technology. You know, but I get concerned at the wear and tear of vehicles. For example, and what they do in those scenarios and how they just a few things. Just and I think maybe it was my experience working at a scooter company, in which case, we own the scooters and people rented them and they you know there was various different things that happened because of that. Um uh these are seem to be a lot more controlled though than, for example, a scooter on the street. This pulls they're constantly working, etc. um but I wonder what happens. Do they start to I wonder how they start to roll this out now, because
Well,
does that
bro,
mean we see a lot more of them? Or because I was seeing these when I was last in San Francisco about a month ago, I was seeing these, but I was seeing a lot more than I saw when I originally lived there. And so,
mm,
are we going to see a lot more? And then also too, like it's like not having us even outside of the driving concerns, you know, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but just like you're just one like, let's say you're just riding as one individual, does that affect how people perceive these vehicles, from, like, a criminal standpoint? Like, "Oh, there's no witnesses," essentially. Just ways that, like, people 'cause we're also seeing crime go up in San Francisco. We're also seeing other and also just, Los Angeles as well, not just so I wonder about some of those things.
no, those are
Mm.
definitely
I'm
very good
surprised that
points.
oh, go ahead,
Go
bro.
ahead, Dre.
I was just gonna say I'm surprised they actually picked San Francisco. I'm surprised and then not surprised because of all the crime that does occur there and just
Yeah,
how crazy it is. But
yeah.
also, too, the media says San Francisco, but they could be really in like Palo Alto or Menlo Park. That's not San Francisco. So,
Mm,
like, I don't really know if they're like actually in the city. I don't know those specific details, but
yeah, yeah.
I am surprised. I am surprised by that. But one thing I did see, which I thought was interesting, and this caused a little bit of concern for me, but I also thought about like a potential opportunity here. So there was this NBC News journalist who took a test ride in a cruise vehicle, and they were doing it with the driver instructor, not from Cruise, but from a separate company that does like driving instructing for like, teenagers who's trying to get their license or whoever. And they were both in the back seat, cars driving itself, and they are at this particular intersection or on the street where one of the lanes is closed off due to construction, so the car needs to get over. The car literally freaks out and just diagonally crosses itself across one of the busy lanes and just stops.
Wow.
And the car is stuck
Wow.
there for like 20 minutes while the person is waiting for it. And
No.
so traffic is gone, people blowing the horn, people pissed off or whatever. And this has happened quite a few times. But I'm just wondering, like, this is not like a product limitation. So I don't know the specific reason, but I think there is an opportunity that as we start to see more autonomous vehicles, I think there's an opportunity for almost like a takeover service in a way. Because I feel like
Mhm.
there should have been
Oh, sure.
an easy way for that car to be remotely taken over and just like remotely taken over
Yeah.
like instantly and like able to
Yes.
just like recalibrate, get back on the road and go.
It's
Right.
a
Like
safety
I
function.
feel like because right now, what Cruise and a lot of these companies do from a safety standpoint is they default to pulling over to the side of the road, which is fine. There's pros and cons to that particular approach, but fine. They've done made that decision. That's fine. But the other part is like, why you got a vehicle that's just stuck in the middle of the street like this? Like, there are going to be other situations where these vehicles are not going to be prepared for. And so that makes me wonder, like the opportunity for like a takeover, almost like OnStar for like autonomous vehicles in a way, like kind of like what the
Yes.
purpose of what OnStar used to do back in the day, like roadside assistance is always there, like kind of like
Yeah.
that, but the
Is
ability to
that
like
something
take over the car.
is that something Cruise would have, or would they be okay with a third party?
I don't know. I
Well,
think it should
they
be a
need
third party.
it should be a
I think it
third
should be a third
party,
party because
but
that
it
should be
doesn't
a
have to be.
standard. I think it should be a standard feature, like a standard option on autonomous vehicles. But then the question is, if that does become a standard on all autonomous vehicles, then are all autonomous vehicles going to build out the infrastructure to support that internally? Then that doesn't start to make sense, right? And that's where I get to like a third party coming into place because
Yes.
beyond just cars or vehicles on the road, eventually, even when we have autonomous drones, autonomous other vehicles in general, they're like even robots. Like I had like a little bot come and deliver food from DoorDash not too long ago. Like, and I'm sure like that can probably a human driver can probably take over on that. So even I think across vehicles, there's opportunity. So I don't know. Maybe Cruise will build it themselves because they're big enough to do it. But for some of these other, automakers like Rivian, for example, I don't know if it makes sense for them as a startup to invest in this. If they start doing autonomous vehicles, versus Cruise, which is backed by General Motors.
Yeah, that's you bring up a brilliant point, and even just saying like the OnStar for autonomous vehicle makes it very clear what you're speaking to, or even just like the AAA of it, because
Mm,
what they want to do, what they should all want, what all autonomous companies, car companies should want, is that they should want to definitely minimize traumatic incidents. And it's not always in the best interest of the person or persons inside the vehicle just to pull over to the side or stop whatever is happening or whatever. There are a lot of cases where, um, despite the AI that they're using and things, it's ultimately all still being trained. It's ultimately still being trained. Elon even going as
100%.
far as saying, yeah, exactly. Elon going as far as saying that they have the best AI as far as like reality goes, and so everybody's at the same level. And so um, uh, everybody's like going to be at the same level. But here's the thing: the for example, I had a Coco bot come once when I was getting lunch with my girlfriend once, and it was funny. It was kind of like zippy and whatnot. And for us that know, Coco is a delivery bot that can, sometimes you'll be on like a Uber Eats or something, and you'll just come to your door or something like that. And like it's really zippy, it's really fast. I don't know where they come from. Sometimes they look like they're at restaurants. Point being is, I found out though that there are people who are remote operators that are also behind them. They're not just
Yep.
completely autonomous. And
Mm,
so yeah, you would naturally definitely think that um, if that is true with Coco, for example, or delivery bots, then you definitely should have some level of human surveillance when it comes to autonomous vehicles. If that is not happening, or somebody doesn't have the ability to take control of the car, um, that could be very like because also too they need to consider like that the world is not like, this is new to the world too. So you in that scenario that Dre described where it kinda stopped and it was in the middle of the road, people are honking and going like, you can see how for example, imagine you're just, like, 16 years old, you just called a ride or something, and, like, you don't know what to do. Like, you just don't know what to do. You're jammed up. Everybody's honking at you. They don't understand it. Ultimately, they're looking at you, and really, it's a malfunction with like, and so that is not something that you would want, and it would make people, tell stories that you don't want to happen. And every vehicle transformation goes to this. Scooter companies were no different. We had to learn, unfortunately, through training and things that happened in real world scenarios that didn't happen when we first tested it in Los Angeles, so, um, yeah, remote operation, I think it should be almost mandatory. And then further, there should be independent parties that are responsible for that, because it will not make sense, for everybody to do it, in the way that we're describing. But I do think it should be like damn near required, like how it is to have car insurance.
Let let me ask this question and steer the conversation a little bit differently. Which business model wins? Because you kind of have two different business models on the extremes that are developing, where you have like the closed end approach, pretty similar to like, what we're seeing in the AI space. You have Cruise and Waymo. They're building, the hardware and also the software, most of the software as well. But then you have someone like a Tesla, which is distributing the nodes. So rather than having, a closed system where all the vehicles are owned by one provider, they're distributing these vehicles with this technology on to multiple people, right? And each of them, obviously create this unique opportunity to have a network of vehicles to deliver, for delivery services or ride sharing, things of that nature. Which one wins?
You left out Uber though, right? You didn't say Uber.
Okay, okay, Uber and
'Cause
Lyft. Uber and Lyft in the middle.
you can't just sleep on Uber and Lyft because they are
Okay.
they are in the game. They're in the game, right? Because
But
they got massive.
everybody's trying to do the same thing, get to the money, but in a different way. So which way wins though?
Is it winner take
Hmm.
all though? Is it winner take all? Um, I don't know if it's winner take all. Um, I don't know if it's
And what
winner
do you
take
mean by
all.
win? And what do you mean by win? Like, are you asking the question like who can build maybe like the biggest enterprise value in the space, or like who can just be like the dominant go to autonomous ride share platform? Like, what does winning look like?
Or say,
Yeah,
Because if we're talking about
I'm
dominance, oh, go ahead.
I'm saying enterprise value. I think when it comes to transportation, we are on the brink of a major shift of like how those
Mm,
dollars will be spent.
yeah,
And I think
I
not
think the
only in
winner.
terms of yeah,
I,
yeah,
I,
go ahead.
I think the winner is Uber. I'm gonna tell you why. I think the winner is gonna be Uber. I think it's gonna be Tesla. I think it's Uber because, bro, Uber has massive distribution and they have an incredible driver network that already exists. And I think in the world that we're going into, although it may look like we're going fast, we're going slow. And so I think what's going to be important today is choice. Do consumers have choice? If I want an autonomous car because it's available, sure, I'll take it. But if I want a car with a driver in it, because me and my friends are going out to a night to a party and we pulling up at the club and we want the black like it's different use cases. And so I feel like from like going after a broad audience, I think Uber is like deeply entrenched there, and I think they've done the work. So I think they're good. And also too, I think they're best positioned to just add on to the network. They don't have to do much different. They already have customers, credit cards. They don't have to do much in order to just simply add a new service. And they've done that over time with UberX, with Uberpool, with some of the other right share options they have, although it's not autonomous. They've added other products, which has actually changed the market. They were like some of the first to actually do that. The other part is I think Tesla will win because I think in Tesla's scenario, their strategy is a little bit different, right? Because yeah, they're selling you to know technically, right? But Elon's position is that hey, if you buy a Tesla car, you can then take your car and put it onto this rideshare network and go make money as well. And so in that world, what does that look like? Is it best for Tesla to completely own that entire thing where they now have to do customer acquisition? to get people to take taxi services in their cars? Or does Tesla just plug into an Uber or a Lyft that already has a distribution network? Right? Because just having the supply isn't enough necessary to kick up the demand to make it
Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up,
meaningful
hold
enough.
up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Are you saying Uber potentially can be the new GPU? Is that what I'm hearing? You're essentially
Look,
saying
it's possible.
that is a
That's all I'm saying. It's
crazy
possible.
claim. That is wild.
It's
It
it's
is
possible,
Yeah.
possible.
bro. It's all about to me, it's
That's
all about
wild
where
though.
companies sit. It's all about where does a company sit in the value chain? Where do they sit
Yes.
in the value chain? And what leverage do they have from sitting in that value chain? I think Uber has an immense amount
Mm.
of leverage and brand leverage. Like, think about this. People tried to
Hold on,
cancel
hold on,
Uber
hold on.
and they still around.
And
Yeah.
think about this. For the
I
longest, people didn't think Uber was going to get to profit.
Right. And they did.
For the longest.
yeah.
Uber Eats been profitable for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So that business is scary long term. Okay, okay. What are your thoughts, Rodney?
Uh, I think I'm with both of y'all in the sense of like, uh, just in the sentiment of, it's an interesting take of where things are going, but also more specifically, what Dre's saying, like the Tesla and Uber being the winners of autonomous vehicles, despite, for example, maybe Waymo and Cruise making strides, especially and like in that particular niche, because because Tesla right now is just trying to allow you to drive autonomously while you're in the car. That's different than, trying to say, hey, we're doing this network. Tesla,
No, think about it. That he got that push that button, let your car go do the work for you. He got that coming.
he got it coming. Not that he doesn't have it coming. Not that doesn't have it coming. It's just that he doesn't have to. He's not currently responsible for the work of the like that thing that's coming.
Mm.
Google and Waymo and all, they're doing that work right now. The lawmakers, like they're doing that work right now. You don't even have to do it. Kind of like how sometimes uh, Google would come out with a lot of cool stuff, and Apple will just wait and just do it better. Like just because they have a different strategy as far as the way that they distribute vehicles with specifically with Waymo and maybe Cruise and I tend towards um uh it being, if there is going to be company supply of vehicles, it needs to be a base supply, but not the primary supply. I think
Mm.
that that's where um yeah, I think that, like, I just get concerned about, like, the scalability of, like, of if they are, like, they would have like, to me, it would seem like the plan for them would be to be creating a network, in which case they may create some level of, standard protocol, like how, there's Apple CarPlay, et cetera, or Google Auto or whatever, into which case, automakers can maybe allow you to do what Tesla's already planning to allow you to do with Teslas. I can see maybe that, but I do think Uber is super extremely positioned as far as the network. And I think they've done the research. I think they have a lot of real time information. I think they have a lot of real time information as far as traffic. They have also a lot of information around conflicts, for better or for worse, things that have happened on their network. Um, and I think that, yeah, I think Tesla and Uber, and Lyft. I put Lyft in there too, um, uh, because I can see Tesla having their own self-driving network, but also allowing, you know, um, people to put Teslas on other networks, depending on maybe a few different factors. It depends on how it goes, but um, yeah, I can see that. But I do think that like Google and they need to allow, like, it's cool that they have people ordering devices and whatnot. But again, my original questions were like, where are they storing these things? These things are operating all day. Like wear and tear, like security, also like things like what Jay was saying, like, like if it does,
That's a
like,
lot.
hit a thing where it just
That's a
doesn't know what to do,
lot.
yeah, it's just yeah,
That's a lot to manage.
yeah,
To
so it's
manage and to scale, that is a
yes,
significant amount of
a
shit
ton.
to do. And GM is behind Cruise and shit. GM can barely build enough electric vehicles to not go out of business. So how they gonna
Yeah,
also
yeah.
scale a taxi service on the side? Like they got
So
enough
so
levels
so
to
let
go
me
Yeah.
let
after going.
I want to ask this question. How does with the introduction of autonomous vehicles, and one of the assumptions with that is like obviously because the driver is being removed, costs should significantly go down as well because that's been one of the big complaints around like Uber, right? If that is true, now people have autonomous riding in an autonomous vehicle is the same cost or cheaper than hopping on, the subway, the train. What does that do to the consumer's behavior when they think about transportation in general?
I don't think it would be that cheap. I don't ever think it would be that cheap. Mm, I can't see that.
You don't think so?
That's possible? No, not at all. I don't
Mm,
see how that makes sense. Like because like in the case of mass transit, it makes sense because you have a large number of people, right? Like you can distribute that cost much more evenly distribute the cost when you have a bus full of 60 people, right? But if a bus route only had two people riding between stops, it wouldn't be the cost that it is, right? It wouldn't make sense. And so I can't ever see the price getting that low, but I could see the price getting lower than like a current taxi or a current Uber. So maybe it's like an in between that route, in between there. So I still think that like definitely brings cost savings. Don't get me wrong, but I think
mhm.
comparing it to like a mass transit bus or train, that would be I think we literally would need hundreds of millions of cars on the road for that to even be possible. But
Yeah,
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 that's just
and we
that's
gotta
just my
control
take. But I do
demand.
think
Eh
the cost advantages for the consumer is good, right? Like in Rodney's case, the 16-year-old now maybe they can't afford it. Where like the 16-year-old maybe they can't afford a Uber home because that is just too much. The train takes too long. They can obviously afford that. So maybe this introduces another alternative, just cheaper. Just between those two options.
yeah, for sure, I can see that, I can see that. So yeah, look, we have another topic for you guys, and, by the way, that autonomous, conversation, I'm still, like, blown away by some of the stuff we're considering, like, the fact that wait,
It's
just real quick before I go
2023.
to before I go to the next topic, real quick, just to be clear,
Crazy.
California is saying that all of California is allowed to do level 5, or are they just talking about, like,
No, 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 no.
like
I got this wrong. So it was San
okay,
Francisco.
okay,
Yeah.
got you, okay,
Yep.
okay, got you. But Dre also did mention, though, that they are testing these things in Houston as well, which I found, a little surprising and, curious. I was also curious at how it was being received, but yeah, no, look, so, in other news, though, speaking of just AI, maybe in robotics, but also Anthropic, right? So Anthropic has, um they are famously known for Claude and, working and especially their most recent, like, consumer, type of product. But also they're ironically, they're also backed by Google as well, but they just raised $100 million, um, in this last, week few days or so, and, yeah, um, it's interesting. It's, $100 million. It's not a little bit of amount of money. What do you guys think about this raise? And, I guess it's gonna go towards just building more of their AI, and they want to essentially strengthen telecommunications, and AI business. So, the way I took that was, for example, maybe like, call centers or, just like, more, business tailored, uh, functionalities. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of the news yet. I'm checking it
Yeah.
out right now. What are your thoughts, Trey?
Yeah, I don't really have much. I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like Of course, they need the
Yeah,
capital. I suspect tons of more AI companies will continue to raise money as that's just where the coal is hot right now in terms of like where VC dollars are going. So I'm not surprised there. And with the release of their new cloud product, I'd imagine like engagement, usage, and all that stuff is probably up. The other thing too is this round probably could have been done a long time ago. Sometimes companies like do rounds
probably.
months ago. They just don't announce it
Yeah,
because like they
true.
don't want it to conflict maybe with a product release or just focus, right?
Right.
Because the moment like this headline goes out, what happens? CEOs and all the executives get flooded with shit, whether it's sales pitches,
Yes.
whether it's
Yeah,
other investors or angels, like just a bunch of flood. So could just be controlling the narrative. But yeah, kudos to the team.
absolutely.
Isn't this the company just backed by Reed
Yeah,
Like, isn't Reed
absolutely. Speaking of,
Hoffman over at LinkedIn investor?
just, like, outside of, like, the funding of this, um, of this in particular, I saw an interesting tweet go, viral, from somebody that was there's a lot of, AI influencers right now, and I would say that that's not a bad thing. I think there's a lot of people that have been, like, sharing, like, things that I didn't know or just, you know, things about AI that like, news that I didn't see or even, for example, things that people, love to hate, like prompt engineering and whatnot. But, there was, some tweet that went, like, viral. I don't know to what extent if you guys saw it at all, but essentially, it was that, ChatGPT or I'm
Mm.
sorry, OpenAI will run out of money by 2024, or they're at risk to run out of money by 2024. And it was very intriguing to see how, even this person who has built a name off AI, especially as of recently, was bigger. They have nearly 100,000 followers. They also have many people that saw this as like, and they based it off this uh, news site. And let me just ask y'all a question, and it's clearly rhetorical, but uh, you guys think that there's any credence to OpenAI losing money or going bankrupt by 2024 because they are spending, for example, $700,000 per day with ChatGPT.
No.
Yeah,
Abs a a
yeah.
abs abs
Go
absolutely not. Because
Yeah.
that's only $255
Yes.
million dollars. They raised 10 bill.
Yes. 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 But here's the thing,
Aren't they making
the
out on a
way
$20 subscription too?
Yeah,
and that is
yeah.
the thing about and that's what I wanted to speak to about how, for example, a seemingly credible tweet could be misinterpreted by people and
Mm.
spreading, because even the tweet I'm looking at has 100,000, nearly 100,000 views on it. And it starts off by saying ChatGPT costs OpenAI $700,000 per day. Off jump, the way that is framed, nobody who is outside of our industry, without the context of startups and how financing works and VC, etc., that would sound very alarming, and it is alarming to some extent, but it lacks context. And I thought it was interesting that it started a conversation. But to Brian's point, yes, that's only 255 million per year. I hate to say only, but this is a company that is backed by Microsoft. They have ties, strong ties, and they've raised over $10 million. And also, they are charging for ChatGPT. Um, and I only assume that maybe the cost of whatever they're doing gets cheaper over time. So it was just interesting. I thought it was kind of funny. I wanted to bring it up, but I just wanted to make it clear to people that sometimes these facts, or sorry, or these things that people are representing as facts, seem good. They make sense on the surface until you dig deeper. In this case, it's pretty clear to us, but I can see how you could casually scroll, and if you don't know much about AI, you might, start telling all your friends about how OpenAI is gonna go bankrupt in 2024, and you couldn't be further from the truth.
What does that say about what truth may look like in the future?
Oh, that's a whole I don't even know if we should open that pack that can of worms, man. Truth in the future, it's gonna be very mixed. I'll put it like that. It'll be very mixed. It'll be very mixed. That's the way I can put it. It's already
Yeah,
mixed. It's already mixed.
that's a deep question right now. Honestly, bro, I don't even know if it's real now, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
shit,
exactly.
I have no idea. I have no idea what percentage of what I see, at least on my social media, is actually coming from a real person. And then let alone if the headline is real, unless I like literally click on it and like go and verify. But outside of that, I have no idea. So much is probably generated. The
Yeah.
system generated. Who knows? We might be living in our own silos and not even realize it.
And if there's a high possibility we are in multiple different areas, my For You on Google News looks different from y'all's just on interest, and it's just interesting. But as far as what was true, yeah, I think this is a conversation that that would be. I think that's a whole podcast episode, another podcast episode potentially. About and maybe we include we'll cover for the listeners about that. But that's going to be very sticky. That's going to be very sticky. It's going to be very because outside of even just bots and whatnot, people you don't know what's true just because some people are genuinely believing something that doesn't make sense, or maybe they're at a different level of understanding, or maybe they misread something, or there are so many factors that lead to the misrepresentation of maybe something that's concrete. And still, um, we acknowledge, based on even the way our criminal justice system is set up, that that multiple perspectives needs to be accounted for in even like a trial, for example. If it was very easy to determine truth, we would have already done that. It's not easy to do that. It's never been easy to do that because we're all seeing from multiple views. Luckily, we have potential tools in the future that will allow us to have, hopefully, some clearer pictures of maybe things that are hard to see while we are playing the game of being humans. Like we're playing, we are born human. We are in that game, whatever you believe or how we got here, you're now a part of that. So, you know, there's information could be fake or real, or it could be real to somebody, and maybe not real to you for whatever the reason is. And it's complex, and it will be way more complex in the future, way more. That's why I say mixed. That's why I say mixed. It will be very blended. That's how I look
I'm
at
at,
it. By the way,
I'm actually
speaking of blended, sorry for this is a little
yeah.
moment, but speaking of blended, I was at the mall the other day with my girlfriend, and I looked to I was getting a smoothie, and I looked to my right, and I see this like hologram, like it's like a jeweler store, and it's like this lady. I thought she was real at first. I'm not gonna lie, I thought she was real. And I have like perfect vision, right? And she was it was like a billboard, but it looked like a hollow, like it was weird. I recorded the video and everything, and I was
Where
just
was
felt
this?
so weird. This was at a mall. This was like Westfield Mall in Culver, like Culver City or something. Like, and I was like, I felt uneasy a little bit because it started making me think about one, not only what I like did I originally not realize it wasn't a real person, but also just it started making me think about the future of, for example, being guided through, for example, a jewelry store by somebody who's not real, but because of new capabilities of technology, etc. So it made me feel a little strange and whatnot. Like it threw me off guard. I didn't expect that, and they did a really good job. Whoever did it caught my attention. I recorded the video. I didn't buy anything though, but yeah, it was a little unnerving, a little bit.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never seen nothing like that before. Yes, drop the video. I want to see it.
Yeah, I got y'all. I got y'all. Oh my gosh. Because if they can do that now, bro, I'm telling y'all, if they could, I'm telling you, at first glance, it was waving at me. Oh, nah. I'm telling you, nah. Nah. And I can only see where that's headed. So I'm just like, man, it's only a matter of time. What is that, like 5 years before they can really have a good hologram that you really would have to pay close attention to? That's why I say mixed. That's why I keep saying mixed. It's not gonna be easy. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna need to like attention is gonna be like valuable to another level. Like it's gonna be difficult because you need to pay attention, or you don't. Maybe you don't want to, and everything's smooth. But maybe that's in the Matrix. A red pill versus blue pill type of situation. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Bet y'all got any other topics? Are we wrapping it up?
I think we're wrapping it up.
Yeah, I think that was
All
good,
right.
man.
All right. Catch y'all on the next one.